Greetings all, Philip Snow here, promoting himself as usual. Well, somebody has to. It's all about my new book, Anglesey Naturewatch. Note the glowing forward from Yellow Williams there. And it's about the launch and the exhibition of some of the book artwork at ORIEL MON. That's the Anglesey Heritage Gallery here on Anglesey in the middle of the island in Llangefni. And the book itself is all about the wonderful change in wildlife and landscape we have here on Anglesey, but it's not all bad news. We've got a lot of, we might have lost things like corncrake, red helleborine orchid and natterjack toad, but we've gained an incredible 3 species of egret, 2 of which are already breeding here, with prospecting spoonbills of purple heron. Red kites have come in, and things like badgers, otters, red squirrels especially have all come back. Peregrine, chough, black guillemot have all come back. So we've lost a few things, but we've gained a few things. And we certainly have a wide variety of glorious landscape here. It's not just about our coastline, which is deservedly famous even geologically, but it's about the interior. We've got some fine marshes and lakes and small rivers and even limestone fens, quite unique areas of conservation where there's a great variety of plants and insects like dragonflies and glorious things like flowering rushes and what have you. So this is the exhibit here in the gallery in Llangefni, just a little exhibition of the work. And this is me posing with a young tawny owl. He actually flew during one of my sketching workshops, which we do with live birds, but I do much more. Normal sketch in workshops here on the lawn at Mafftrife, sketching the landscape as well as the environment and the wildlife. The interior of my so-called studio is not quite as pleasant, more resembles a skip on the museum than a gallery. But fortunately we've got some 25 square miles of glorious landscape and wildlife here on Anglesey. Here's me sketching just the other week up at South Stack RSPB Reserve by the famous lighthouse there, sketching puffins and razorbills, guillemots, dolphins, gannets, and we even have minke whales and very rarely killer whales passing by, basking sharks, and even bluefin tuna have come back around our coast. So as I say, it's not all lost, we're gaining as well. This is just some more of our wonderful coastline, like the White Arch above Roscollin, looking down the coast to Clenville Island and our rival, the mountains on the Clyn Peninsula, west of Snowdonia, stretched down to Anglesey, Bardsey Island, another wonderful place for wildlife and scenery. But these are typical paintings and sketches especially. Most of my work is done wherever possible from life, apart from some book illustrations, and this was sketched on the Tunnicliffe Society AGM up at South Stack. Well, I started the sketch there, finished it up at Kemlyn Lagoon, where the terns, lots of terns are currently nesting, although typically it's a sketch that started in the field and often painted later on at home. It's almost like a paint by numbers. This was actually sketched down in Carmarthen, in South Wales, but we have all of these birds up on Anglesey now, as well as brown trout, red kites and goosanders have come back, and things like kingfisher and dipper on virtually every little stream now. Here's me showing the Queen the Tunnicliffe exhibit here in the gallery at Llangefni, ORIEL MON, when it opened over 30 years ago. She's not so happy about the fact of my explanation of why the exhibition of Tunnicliffe's sketchbooks, the new computer display, failed as soon as she arrived. Bang goes my knighthood. Anyway, here's the little exhibit, the current exhibition here in the corridor leading up to the main galleries in ORIEL MON. Off to the left, there's always a Tunnicliffe exhibit there, showing at the moment, showing some of his early work, even college work. But as he exhibited, he illustrated well over 300 books owned way behind. You can see also that that encounter with the Queen caused my hair to fall out with the trauma of it all. This is me posing in front of the current exhibit with a new book which is available from the gallery, as well as lots of outlets around the island, and especially online via the dreaded Amazon, but you can usually get it cheaper there. Anyway, I shouldn't be advertising them, should I? Disgraceful. Here's a typical map from the book. The map, as I say, the book has over 38 maps of the sites, over 50 sites, and we begin appropriately up at South Stack. It's not just about the birds and the seals and the puffins, choughs, etc. We've got speciality flowers like spatulate fleawort, which is much nicer than its name, spotted rock rose, and the glorious silver-studded blue butterfly, along with rose chafers and cockchafers, etc. Even glowworms are currently being seen on Anglesey. Here are 6 characteristic maps from the book, which obviously show you the footpaths, the coastal footpath especially, and the access and the typical wildlife that you will see, including marine life, which is especially rich around the island. And they're all at A4 size. Unfortunately, this top map here is Carmel Head up in the northwest of the island with the skerries, which was missed out of the book by the publishers, unfortunately. But if you email me, I'll send you a copy of that map and a few of the unfortunate typos. Some of the typos are mine. I've discovered that dyslexic in Welsh is spelt with a double D, unfortunately. But the bottom map here is Penrose, where we've got another success story, because we now have hundreds of Brent geese wintering on Anglesey, which hasn't happened in the past, at least in the recorded past, as well as beautiful little grebes like Slavonian and blackneck grebes wintering alongside the divers. Here's the map for Camlin before the captions were put on, with Risso's dolphin, which seems to be another newcomer to our coast here, along with the bottlenose dolphin and harbour porpoises, etc., as well as the characteristic terns that breed there and out on the skerries. That's the islands in the background there, and some wonderful coastal scenery and marine life like sea hares, mass crabs, even candy-striped flatworms, which is something to be quite honest, I'd never heard of, but has been found in the rock pools up at Kemlin. There's some wonderful rock pools around Anglesey, rock pool life. This is another RSPB reserve at Corsdugger by Gaelwyn, on the A5, right in the middle of the island there. It's not just about otters and bitterns and marsh harriers that have come back. There's a wonderful little flowering rush and things like sedge and reed warblers, along with even a savage warblers recently nested with us. This is the RSPB reserve out on the Skerries Islands, northwest, just northwest of Anglesey, and with a mother harbour porpoise and calf, and some of the hundreds of terns that nest out there, as well as puffins. But unfortunately, most of our puffins now nest out on the islands and not on the coast, although you can see a few at South Stack. Unfortunately, the book says that there is a Atlantic puffin at South Stack, whereas I actually wrote there are a few Atlantic puffin at South Stack. So not all the typos are mine. Here's another typical sketch. This is a composite sketch of recent spring sketches here at Mathrife and all around Anglesey. It's featuring especially our glorious osprey, non-breeding osprey Dinas, and one of the many large fish that he catches, along with other typical breeding birds, although shelduck numbers have gone down. Although hundreds of them winter here, not as many breed here anymore, unfortunately. Here's the original otter sketch that went on that composite sketch, and typical birds like barn owl, red-breasted merganser and reed bunting. Although goosanders have gone up in recent years, mergansers have slightly gone down. This is a winter sketch on the Corsdugger, that's the RSPB marsh inland, with some of the many short-eared owls that have visited us recently, as well as resident marsh harriers now and barn owls. And here's a displaying chough wing shivering up on the cliffs up near South Stack, with spring wheatears, and that's common sandpiper down at the bottom, which come through in good numbers in the spring and then returning. They're going to start returning soon, anytime soon. This is June the 24th when I'm trying to make this video. If Video Maker Pro will allow me to do so. This is about my 6th attempt, because we keep getting black spots in the middle here. This is Llangefni Island, a typical painting of mine in the exhibition, from the sea actually, sketched from the sea, from a lovely steamship called the Mammals. And this is one of Anglesey's most famous sites, between the bridges, Menai Bridge on the Menai Strait. Although the terns no longer breed on the island here, there's often terns on the strait during the summer, mostly Arctic terns and sandwich terns. More typical coastal scenery. This is the range, wonderful sedimentary up-tilted rocks here near Holyhead, with red-billed choughs, which, as I say, have come back hugely in the past 10, 20, 30 years. Another success story for the island. This is certainly a success story. Having eradicated the grey squirrels, we now only have red squirrels on Anglesey, apart from the odd cheeky one that comes across the bridge. This particular squirrel was really quite interesting. I watched it for quite some time. I thought it was relaxing and hanging out, but what it was actually doing was waiting for another squirrel to come down on the feeders here at Clyn Park Mawr in Newborough Forest, which is a very popular squirrel watching spot. But what he was actually doing was waiting for another squirrel to come on the feeders so he could sit on the lid and imprison the other squirrel as it was feeding. This was not so pleasant. This is me with Tom being filmed for BBC Countryfile a couple of years back, and we spent all afternoon being filmed in the woods whilst I sketched the squirrels, but only to appear on the screen for about a minute, I think, and they used the wrong sketch as well. Anyway, there's much more distractions in the forest apart from the squirrels and the ravens and the odd crossbill, because we have a quite fantastic array of fungi. I love painting fungi and then eating as many as possible, although you have to be very, very careful, of course. I certainly wouldn't recommend eating some of these, although the majority of fungi I think are edible, but you do have to be, obviously you have to be very, very careful. This one is edible. This is a slender parasol mushroom, basically a more delicate dune version of the very large parasol mushroom, and these grow in large numbers on the dunes at Aberfrow and Newborough during the late summer. I really recommend this book, Roger Phillips's Mushroom Book. It's a big book and very extensive, because you really do have to be careful. These are just a little illustration frame that's in the exhibition for the little Christian magazine Nature Observations of our Welsh owls, although of course they're also typical British owls. We even have the odd long-eared owl here on Anglesey, although they're mainly migratory and very hard to find. We also had most of these fancy pheasants as well, but they're largely extinct on Anglesey, if not elsewhere in Britain. This is another illustration from the book. That's a common pheasant, by the way, in its beautiful bottle green form, the Colchinus race. This is a very special painting, although the original is not in the show, just a print. I actually made these reeds and stuck them on after I'd painted the bittern and the marsh harrier and the kingfisher there. So that's a rather special painting, including the wildlife that lived in the reeds. Here's a sketch actually done from through the window of little egrets, of course. They're a huge success story in Britain, breeding alongside the grey herons here. We even have good numbers of summer-in greenshanks sometimes, although often here in the winter. This is what's called a so-called finished painting or gallery painting, concocted from scenes actually over on the mainland on the River Ogwen, with a mother and cub otter. These are typically manufactured here in the studio from various sketches and photographs. This is Dinas, our famous osprey, who's currently terrorising several nests here on in North Wales. He's a non-breeding osprey, but he's been coming to Mathright here for the past 2 summers now, and delighting us with views like this. This bass is far, far bigger than Dinas and weighs far, far more than he does. And how he can catch it in 1 foot. I mean, he carried it in 2 foot over to my camera post, but it's just huge. It's just absolutely massive. And my computer has now decided to go off in the middle of the commentary, so I don't know what's going on at all here. This is supposedly Movie Maker Pro, but I'm certainly no pro movie maker, so I'm afraid you'll have to put up with my disgruntled and disjointed diatribe here, or narrative. Here's me sketching on the lawn again, and the lawn is actually there in the middle of this painting. On the left hand side there, the bungalow used to belong to the much more famous Mr. Tunnicliffe, and this is where we are situated generally, up in the northwest of North Wales. That's Gwynedd and Anglesey, the old Carnarvonshire and part of Meirionydd, as well as Ynys Môn or Anglesey. And just a bit, we've got Snowdonia of course in the middle there, so we've got a huge variety of wildlife, literally from mountain to sea, as well as coast and dune and interior, lakes and rivers. But we'll end up here back at the estuary. This is the outer end of the estuary where ospreys are currently fishing, but as I say, they're not breeding here at the moment. Much more characteristic birds are choughs, red-billed choughs, and this is an overview of the end of the estuary. I call this the royal view because Prince William and Kate were living on the estate here at the end of the estuary for a number of years when William was based here in the area. It really is a wonderful view. It's a worthy home for osprey. These are curlews here, which are one of our most charismatic birds with that wonderful cry, which we hear in the summer and the winter. So I'll just end up promoting another couple of books. My Hebridean sketchbook, Light and Flight, Wildlife and Landscape sketchbook, and another life's work, which is the design and origin of birds, clocking where they came from and why they are so beautifully designed and why everything in the world is in such a state at the moment. As I say, I've done illustrations for over 70 books altogether, counting covers. I did 24 covers for this cheap reprint of the New Naturalist series, and in some books there might just be a couple of illustrations of mine, but as I say, Mr. Tunnicliffe did well over 300 books, so I'm well behind, and at my age not about to catch up now. Anyway, this is my last book, the last one that I illustrated and wrote, Tall Tales from an Estuary, and it's out of print now, but there is supposed to be a Welsh version arriving sometime, but I've not seen any sign of that. And this is another latest painting available as a print. This is the cover for the new Birds of Wales, which has been a magnus opus, a lot of work put in by a lot of people over the previous years. I've only done the cover and the frontispiece. And this is a DVD, which is no longer in print either, but you might be able to find it out there. So we'll end up with promoting my book again, and if you do have it, I'd like to happily sign it and even do a little doodle in it for you if you're passing here, or if we do manage to get some outdoor signing sessions. We're supposed to be having one at Southstead. Anyway, there you go. All the best. Bye-bye.